It is going to be all right in this revolution. Gotta love the Beatles. The final new content video that we have for Unit 2 is how we get to a revolution. So let's look at this passage together, and I'll try to highlight some things for you. 1763, we had the Treaty of Paris ending the French and Indian War. Okay, and this was going to be, sorry, I'm trying to get everything on the screen. We had the French and Indian War happen, and this is what starts off that debt for England. They get access to the fur trade, they get rid of their enemy France, but they're still having problems with their debt. From 1763 to 1770, you see Parliament and King George creating a series of laws that are meant to restrict the colonies in a way that allows them to not be hurting the homeland through this mercantilism. That it's going to be profits coming right to England, not causing wars. Obviously, the colonies are going to be upset with this because a lot of these actions take away their personal rights. They argue no taxation without representation because they weren't involved. They have boycotts, petitions. We see it end violently with the Boston Massacre. To this point, patriots still made up a very, very small percentage of the colonies. By 1770, Parliament created the Tea Act, and this still had the colonies upset because they had no representation. The Sons of Liberty start the Boston Tea Party. Britain responds with the Intolerable Acts. It's just not looking good for anyone involved. This is where those committees of correspondence, where each colony had people to communicate information, got involved, and in the end they decided that after the events in Boston with the Intolerable Acts, that they would have an official meeting in Philadelphia of what will be known as the First Continental Congress. It was a congress or a representation of colonial leaders for the entire continent, for every one of the colonies, not all of them show, but to find out what should we be doing. Now, the fact that they're even organizing is treason, whether they believe in going against England or not. This is going against your country. You're subverting the law. This is not right in the eyes of England. But for the colonies, they're just like, okay, we are to the point where we're having major violence and we're punishing each other. We have to make sure the king understands that we don't want to break away. We just want you to listen to us. Well, at this meeting, they make a few decisions. They all agree that they're going to support Massachusetts because, yes, there were some things that the Sons of Liberty did in Massachusetts that were wrong, but the essence behind them was right, that we need to be treated fairly. Number two, all colonies would boycott British goods. This is not just Boston and Massachusetts. This is all 13 are going to go, fine, we're done trading with England. You're going to lose all of your profits, England and King George III, until you get rid of these intolerable acts, repeal them, give Boston a second chance, and work with us. But we're also smart. We know the king's probably not going to listen to that. Would a king like being told what to do? Probably not. So they're also going to set up militias, volunteers to be citizen soldiers. Okay? So now we're at the point where our frustration with our king is so bad that we've organized illegally and we're setting up military units. If this happened today, if we're looking from the king's side, from the government side, this would be domestic terrorism. This would be a violent insurrection is what they call. And as you can see, the cartoon on the right is all about if the colonies all don't come together and join, they will die because they will be separated one by one, and the individual colonies cannot beat the British, but all 13 together might be able to. This hope for peace is short-lived as we get the shot heard round the world. The British, and I just encourage you to follow along with me, had military control of the city of Boston, as we know, after the Boston Tea Party and the intolerable acts. General Thomas Gage thought that the colonists were stockpiling weapons, had a secret stash in Concord, which was near. So let's send British troops to find them. Sons of Liberty had set up a system to warn that the British were coming. Like, they were ready to fight. And this is where you get the old story of Paul Revere at midnight riding, one if by land, two if by sea, of the lights in the old North Church. It's a nice fairy tale. Paul Revere was caught very quickly in the evening. We get this fairy tale of he did everything. He didn't do much because the British knew what he looked like. There were enough scouts out there that they found him and captured him right away. The most effective is somebody in the reading that I guarantee you probably never heard of, Sybil Ludington. She was 16 years old. She got caught numerous times and let go. Why? Because the British didn't think that a female could do anything to harm them, or someone so young at 16. That ageism and sexism helped the colonies that night in a weird way. Obviously, we don't want ageism and sexism. So what ends up happening is as we move to April 19th, these Minutemen, these militia, end up crossing paths with British soldiers in Lexington. And this is one of the most organized militaries in all of the world, the British Redcoats versus, as it says, blacksmiths, carpenters, shipbuilders, farmers, people that every few of them had some experience from the French and Indian War, but nothing like the battle-hardened British soldiers. A shot is fired, and we know this as the shot heard around the world. Nobody knows who shot first. Anxiety was up. It was early in the morning after staying up all night long, tension, but the shot is fired. As soon as for the first shot is fired, shots are fired both directions. And we now officially have the American Revolution, as we have organized colonists shooting at the British military. This is not just throwing snowballs like the Boston Massacre. This is organized violence against each other. Now, we haven't declared war or anything like that, but there's really no turning back. This revolution is going to happen, but are all 13 colonies really together and ready to fight off this British powerhouse?